Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the Mr. Fix-It channel. Today I'm going to show you some of the ways and some of the methods I use for making gaskets. Stay tuned.
I was sitting out there in the shed one evening, not doing too much of nothing, just kind of staring at the wall. And
So I just got a piece of cardboard here and some white poster board. Need to make this engine case gasket, so it's very complicated. So I'm going to coat this surface with a little bit of oil or grease. And I'm going to try and transfer it to this. And then after I get transferred to this and cut out, I can transfer it to my gasket paper. Now you need to get enough grease on here to transfer the shape of this. But you don't want so much that it's going to squish out, because it'll blurry the line a little bit. So it's kind of a fine line of how much you need on here. The poster board here has a glossy side and a not so glossy side. I'm using the not so glossy side because the glossy side will let the grease smear off, whereas this side it'll let it kind of soak in and it'll stay there more permanently. I'm just going around to make sure I got a nice even coat. And anywhere where it's globbed up on the edges, I want to make sure I wipe that off. And the reason why I'm using the poster board to do this instead of that gasket material, because if I mess up, I don't waste that gasket material. So I don't want a bunch of marks all over it. Cleaning up all the edges here. The idea here is to do this one time and not have to do it twice, obviously. You see, it's just a real thin coat. I'm trying to get as even as possible. I'm using a black colored grease, so hopefully the transfer will be nice and visible. Just taking my time, making sure I get it just right here. I still may have to go back and do this a second time, but like I said, I'm trying to do everything I can to do this just the one time. Now, if not all these areas transfer really well, I can kind of draw it in with a pen, and you'll see what I'm talking about here. And that's another reason why you don't want a bunch of excess grease on this, because if you need to draw it in with a pen and there's grease globbed everywhere, it's going to be messing up your pen marks. Now when I set this down, I want to set it straight down evenly, and I don't want to move it around like that. I want to go down and touch, and that be it. And the reason for the cardboard under here is to help, even out the surface of my bench. So I'm going to kind of lay down this corner back here first and then rock it down onto the page. Try not to move it. Just set it straight down and then press. Let me move this a little bit, kind of off of the bench right there, so I want to kind of move this over a little bit. Alright, let's see what we got. Lift straight up, don't slide it around. And there's the gasket impression. Now I can go through these areas that are a little light. I can touch them up with a pen, with an ink pen. So this corner down here didn't quite transfer well. So I'm just going to look. So there's that big hole there. Kind of fudge this one in. So all these little areas in here, that's all going to be solid. So I'm going to cut here and out here, and I'm going to leave all this except for these three holes. And the same goes for over here. All this area over here, from this point to this point, that's all going to be solid except for the holes. I don't have to worry too much about this side over here. So I'm basically going to cut this section out and then all around the edge here. And don't touch it because you can smear it and screw up your line as you're cutting this out. So I'm just going to remove the bulk of the material first, get it out of my way. I'm going to grab a hole punch. I'm going to put a hole in here to get me started with the scissors. Maybe a couple of them side by side, make it wide enough to get the scissors in there, and just start cutting this out. If you have to, come in here, remove some of the bulk. Now this gasket is not going to be as perfect as one that was cut out by a machine, but this is an old bike, it's hard to find parts for, and if I do find parts, they're going to be very expensive to try to make this gasket. And if I'm really careful at cutting out this template, then I can save the template for future use, and I can just make another one. You can also cut these out with an X-Acto knife, razor blade, something like that. You don't have to use scissors. I like scissors because it seems like I got a little more control. Just stopping ever so often and looking at the engine case there to make sure I'm not cutting off something or leaving something that I need or don't need. I'm going to take my hole punch and punch out the holes. That'll do for a new hole punch. This one's getting kind of dull. Now these bigger holes we'll have to cut out with something else. But let's go ahead and check this against our engine case and see what it looks like. Not too bad. And then as we're transferring this onto the gasket paper, we can make any adjustments with an ink pen as we go. That's looking pretty good. Ideally I'd have a punch that I use with a hammer to cut these out, but I don't have anything that exact size. I'd have to make something, so I think I'm just going to wing it with the scissors. So I'm just going to start it with the hole punch. Alright, so this engine has a bunch of studs, so I'm just going to temporarily thread these in real quick. There's a bunch of them, so it's going to take me a minute, and then I can check, make sure it's template's going to be good to go. Seems like everything's okay. That hole's a little off, so I can go ahead and fix that while it's on here. That hole is a little wonky, so I can go ahead and address these places and then transfer it onto that gasket paper, and that'll be my gasket. Now just in case some of you make the comment, I know more modern engines won't have a gasket in between the engine case, but this one did have a gasket, and it was designed to have a gasket, and I don't want to, you know, use silicone or something like that and cause any, you know, clearance issues. So this is part of the gasket. I measured this, and I'm using a gasket that's similar thickness. So just so you know, that's why there's a gasket here. And I'm also going to make a judgment call because these bits here are a little bit fragile. You notice I left them a little wider up here. I think I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to bring that down, you know, just kind of refine this gasket shape just a little bit. I might add a little bit of thickness to that there, and right in here when I go to transfer it onto that paper. So just use your best judgment. There, it's not perfect, but it's going to work. Now I'll use a little bit of adhesive on this when I go to install this engine case together, and that's how I make a gasket. So for those of you that are curious of what this engine's for, it's for this 1978 Bull Taco. Well guys, that's all I got for you in this video. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and don't be afraid to fix it. Thanks for watching.